Muito bom dia. Prepare-se para tornar global. Esta é a nossa proposta para hoje, no momento em que vender online nunca foi tão importante. Por isso, a AICEP e a Google juntam-se na organização de uma sequência de webinars para abordar este desafio. Este webinar é o segundo desta série. As nossas convidadas de hoje abordam temas operacionais da presença online, como a logística, pagamentos ou suporte ao... E se quer tornar o seu site ainda mais interessante e converter visitas em vendas, então veio ao sítio certo e vai dar por muito bem emprego a hora e meia que vai passar agora connosco. Algumas notas sobre o funcionamento deste webinar. Por favor, mantenha o seu microfone e a sua câmara desligadas. Esteja preparado para colocar questões no final desta sessão e em inglês. E exatamente porque o inglês é a língua de trabalho das nossas convidadas, passamos a entendermos a partir de agora em inglês. Let me now introduce our guests, addressing them a warm welcome. Yulia Krizan is Google's manager for international growth team. Carla Coutinho is Google's industry manager and PT mobile lead. Yulia and Carla, you are most welcome today. Thank you for your time and for being on board with us. I will immediately hand over to Yulia, who will address operation matters about going global, such as logistics, payment means, or the usage of language in key markets, or even how to make your website more trustable. Very important considerations when setting up your online presence, your online business. Yulia, good morning. The floor is yours.
Bom dia a todos. My name is Yulia, and thank you so much, Carlos, for the warm welcome. Apologies, I cannot deliver this in Portuguese. I'll limit myself to bom dia. That was my advice. Very delighted to be here, as Carlos said. I manage the international growth team for Southern Europe at Google. I've been at Google for a bit over 6 years and currently look after a team of consultants helping Google's largest advertisers from Spain, Portugal, France, and Italy build their strategies and expand internationally. I'm going to follow off on the presentation that Beltrán has done on Monday. So Beltrán walked you through why export, why online, why Google. And today we're going to focus a bit more on the how, insights, share a couple of international frameworks that Google has, and we advise our clients in terms of growing and setting up international operations, and even some Google solutions. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into the topic. As I said, we'll start first with a recap of the framework that Beltrán has presented on Monday, and then go into the deep dives. So, as you might remember, on Monday he walked you through a couple of steps for getting ready to prepare your operations. So looking at key aspects such as localization, payments, customer care, logistics, and talent recruitment, and why are all these aspects extremely important for your success globally. I'm going to focus on the first four, so localization, payments, customer care, and logistics. Talent recruitment is a slightly different one, and we have tons of material as well on Market Finder, so happy to send you a couple of links if you're interested in that topic as well. So we'll jump right into the deep dives. We'll start with localization. So why is localization so important, and how is Google positioned to advise on localization? So firstly, we export over 100 products and localize in more than 90 languages. So we have 3.5 billion users, as I said, more than 100 products, more than 90 languages, and as you can see, all the products that we currently offer in different markets. So we've got a lot of experience and have built a lot of partnerships to make our products truly global along the way. We've done tons of mistakes and learned from that. So this is why we're opening our knowledge and what worked well as well. So a couple of years ago, we ran a survey with some of the largest advertisers that we have who export. And we asked them, like, what is your biggest operational hurdle when you go international? And 72% a vast majority of those actually responded that the biggest and number one operational hurdle is localization. And we dug a little bit deeper to understand why. And as you can see, 72% of the consumers spend most of the time on websites in their own language. So if the website, you're present in a market and the website is not in their own language, you'll lose a vast market share of that market. 82% of shoppers are more likely to buy if promotional material is, again, localized to their language. And 44% of the exporters say that localizing a website was the key factor when going abroad. So with that in mind, we try to understand, okay, this is the biggest hurdle. How do we help advertisers solve for that? So we've put, I added a question here, but we'll keep that to perhaps to the end. So I would be very curious also to understand your localization goals and how do you do that internally. But we'll go straight to the framework. So we set it up in 3 easy steps. So step 1 is understanding the key language, like the languages for your key markets. Step 2, deciding which solution is best for you. And step 3, setting up a process. So very easy and straightforward. When it comes to the first one, understanding the language. So I chose an example with 3 markets, Germany, France, and Poland. But there's different examples in EMEA and in other continents as well. As you know, the English proficiency varies very much country by country. So in this case, as you can see, Poland and Germany have a relatively high English proficiency, whereas in France, it's very low. So if your strategy is to go to those markets with an English only, you might not attract or capture the full market potential. So the first step is understanding like what is the split and what languages they speak. In countries like Switzerland, they have 4 official languages. So understanding like how do you decide which language to choose, you go with all 4. Belgium is the same. So there's a couple of like even more nuanced countries. Nordics have a high proficiency of English. So sometimes we even recommend English only. So every country and every market that you'll enter will have a different flavor in terms of English versus local language that you'll have to understand. When it comes to the second part, which is deciding which solution is best for you, here there's 2 main considerations that you have to keep in mind. Is it better to go with an in-house solution or with an outsourced one? And what are the considerations that you should keep in mind when deciding for one or the other? So in terms of like business considerations, of course, cost, technology, internal expertise, the time that your teams have, the quality and operational complexity, those are all key aspects and questions that you'll have to ask yourselves before deciding to go with an in-house or outsource. From our experience, we believe that in-house works best if you have the internal expertise. So that's the first part. Like, do you have a team that's multilingual? And when I say multilingual, that can actually do various like aspects of your operations in that local language? Do you have the resources? Can you allocate those multilingual team members to do specific parts of your operations? Usually this is best when you want to expand in less than 5 markets and that you have a limited budget. So that's what we see that works best. If you're planning to expand to more than 5 markets, so if your ambitions are much higher and you have a considerable budget for localization, we believe that it's best to go with an outsource. Of course, you don't have to decide and say, just because you went with an in-house option that you can never outsource. Perhaps at the beginning you can start with one or the other, test it, and then even combine. Then once you've decided whether you go with an in-house or outsourced process, setting up that process and ensuring that you have a process map and everything is clear for everyone internally. So from for the internal teams, if you're outsourcing, like that there's like a clear methodology and framework and a process in place. And we believe that while you're deciding for all those 3 steps, there's also a couple of questions and things that you need to keep in mind. So I've added a link to the Market Finder. So that's a resource that I'll be referencing quite a bit throughout the presentation, where you have a lot of insights in terms of like best practices for setting up operations, and also a lot of local flavor in terms of what are the best practices for a specific market. So I highly encourage you to have a look after this presentation. So in terms of like choosing the right partner, so let's say that you do want to decide to go with an outsourced option. There's like 5 easy steps that we believe that are key. First, in the needs assessment, deciding what services you need. Do you require technology support for integration? What is the language coverage? What volume are expected? Are there any special considerations or industry expertise that you require? And maybe throughout this needs assessment, your vendor might actually even say, for the time being, if you have a small operation, it's actually better to set that up in-house. So you might actually just stop at needs assessment. If you do decide to go ahead with like a service provider and a localization partner, opening up to a RFP and look like what are the partner suggestions. Again, on Market Finder, you'll find some key market by market partner suggestions, not just for localization, but for all the levers that I'll present today. And then who from the vendor company do you want to meet, agree on timelines, and really identify all the risks upfront. Then moving to the last 3, like if you decided with a vendor, evaluating that vendor with looking at what are the measures of success that you want to have, putting some time to draft a contract that respects all those success metrics and needs that you have, and setting up a vendor management flow, which is really, really important, especially in terms of communication and reviewing those success metrics regularly. Then I wanted just to end in terms of localization on this, because I think a lot of times people believe, and companies, even large companies, like we work with a lot of large companies, believe that localization services is translation. And why would we invest, or why is it important to go beyond even like automated translations? So I think translation has a lot of different elements to it. There's more, as I said, than just translating from language A to language B, depending on the content, depending on the workflow. So you might find that, for instance, like for high volume, non-customer facing content, so the very basic product description where you just have a list of words, so shoe, color, machine translation works really well, so that's fine. Then when you have a page, so your front page, that is like the most important one, because that's the first impression that customers will have landing on your website. It's really important to go with something more advanced. So maybe a transcreation, so that you don't just translate from one language to another, but you have someone who will create the same content, the same vibe, but with a truly local flavor. So based on the type of content that you want to localize, you might even end up having different type of vendors and different type of localization needs that could be outsourced or internal. So my key ask to you is to keep that in mind, to remember that localization is extremely important for people, for your customers, that it's not just translation, and have a look at all the resources and the frameworks that we have on Market Finder, and Carlos will also share this document afterwards. So I hope you found it interesting. I'll move to payments. So the second really important. So I've added them in the order of importance, like when you expand globally, what are the main things that you have to keep in mind, adding a local flavor to. So payment is the second one. And why is it so important? Because if you don't have the right payment methods, you might miss a lot of revenue. And I think that's the most important one, because it's the revenue flow that you have to your business. So we've done some research in various markets. This one is specifically from the US, and there's some very large figures that you see here. Almost 120 billion revenue missed in US due to payment declines or not having the right payment methods. That's a big number. Take that to the scale of smaller markets, so it's still probably the second. I would say it's equally important, but this is probably the biggest hurdle to you because it implies a revenue loss, whereas localization is more a client facing one. So when we look at the customer challenges, 67% of customers abandon carts because they don't have a local payment method, and an equally amount abandon a site or app because there are too many steps to the purchase. And Carla is going to walk you through later on the UX and why is it important to have a very smooth user experience, especially on apps and mobile. I'm not going to go in too much detail, but I think just keep that in mind, that payments and UX are very, very much connected. So it goes beyond just having the right payment method, but ensuring that you don't have too many steps to the process. Again, we set up a very easy framework for you to keep in mind. So step one, deciding which payment methods are the most preferred in that market. Step two, selecting a payment provider. And step three, designing a flawless checkout experience. And again, I'm going to give you on step three a very high level, and Carla is going to give you a bit more detail on how to nail the UX part. So in terms of payment methods, I chose, again, three of very similar markets: Poland, Netherlands, and Germany in EMEA. All of them have the bank transfer as a popular payment method. So you would think and reasonably assume that if you have bank transfer, you can go in all markets. However, all of the research that we have and experience with exporters in those markets show that the alternative payment methods are the key to success for those markets. So for instance, in Poland, not having BLIK, which is an e-mobile, will make you lose an important market share, especially for mobile. Ideal in Netherlands is the number one payment method that Dutch prefer. And in Germany, it's critical to have real-time bank transfer, such as Sofort or GiroPay. So keeping that in mind is having one or very cross-market payment methods is great, because that will allow you to have consistency, but then adding that local flavor that will make you truly a local, not just a exporting company to that market, but you will have a truly local flavor. In terms of step two, deciding a payment provider, so very similar to localization, having a process. So the RFP, I've added here a sample. I'm not going to go through the details of this. I think it's just maybe for you, if you're currently or you're thinking of choosing a new payment provider, what are the steps and the considerations you should have. especially in terms of business requirements, technical requirements in terms of integration, setting up service level agreements, and pricing, because that's obviously super important that you ensure that this is cost efficient for you as well. So have a look later on. There's different, on Market Finder, we also added by industry, because also there's a specific preference in terms of payment methods by industry. So for retailer versus a tech B2B, those payment methods might also differ. So have a look and get inspired, and maybe you'll even find some payment methods that you're missing. And then designing a flawless checkout experience. So having the right form of payment, so ensuring that if customers got all the way to your payment and checkout page, that they don't drop just because they don't find that payment method. We always advise to have that clearly marked on your website. What payment methods do you have, so that it's clear, and you don't have clients who click on an ad or go through your checkout and then just abandon because they don't have that and they find it only at checkout. Provide a secure checkout with like very clear and simple steps, and make it easy and fast, because we're living in a world of instant gratification and very, very short time frames. So if people have to wait, and if the website is loading slowly, and if something is going wrong, again, you risk having people dropping just because it's not well optimized. And Carla is, again, I'm quoting Carla a lot, but I think it's really important that you have that user experience. And one aspect that I wanted to add is, especially if you're new to the market, if nobody has heard of your brand, if you're an unfamiliar brand to a specific market, especially where you have very consolidated and well-known brands, think about having some trusted, some recommendations. So there's like Trusted Pilot. There's a couple of solutions that you can use to be certified for those markets. So those certifications will give you kind of a stamp of, I can trust that website because I can trust the certification company. So for instance, in Germany, that's extremely important, like especially for new brands, to have that certificates in place, because that will give you the customers the ease of mind. Somebody checked, went through it, it's legit, it's I can use this. Again, like just some the trust that you can build, and especially on mobile. So I've added some other examples of like, why is it important to have those certifications in place. And as always, the resources on how to plan your operations step by step with more details and market specific on Market Finder. Okay, so we'll go through customer experience. This is super important as well, and it's very important because it's not just about entering the market, but also growing and building your customer lifetime value and ensuring that you can increase sales and loyalty. So it's important to attract new customers and in your growth phase, but also while you're established in the market, maintaining that customer database and ensuring that they're loyal and keep coming back to your business. So I've added some data points here of like why, again, online shoppers will abandon the purchase. 55% is that if they cannot find an answer to a question. So if they're looking for what is a delivery method, what is a payment method, or returns, whatever questions that they have, if they don't find it, they'll very much likely abandon. 60% of global consumers have stopped doing business with a brand due to a single, and I highlight this, single poor customer experience. We have a breadth of options today. There's like various competitors and various companies offering the same solution. So one single poor customer experience is enough for a client to drop and to go to your competitor. And by 2020, by this year, more than 85% of consumers interactions will be managed without a human. So what do I mean by that is that you've seen on a lot of websites, there's a lot more chatbots interactions, and ensuring that the human interaction is kept really for the crucial one. So you don't want people calling you to say, where's my invoice? You want to make sure that your website has that information clearly mapped, or that they can type it in a chat, like in an automated chat, and it's linked directly. So it's not to say that human interactions will be replaced by chatbots, not at all. But companies need to be able to keep up with demand and have different channels for their customer experience and ensure that they have a premium one for the one that is the most important. So, and we talked with some of our top exporters and talked about what are the most common challenges faced when they talked about customer loyalty. And there's 5 key ones that I've added here, but there's many more. The first one is the lack of customer care insights. And this is, they're unsure if the current customer care support methods available are in line with the customer expectations. So not understanding, is this enough? Does the customer in Germany versus the one in Spain need something else? Or they don't have that insight locally. The high ticket volume, so managing queries. And again, this goes back to the point that I made earlier, putting everything in the same channel, and every single request comes through the phone or email, and not having a different path for different types of requests. Low customer satisfaction score, so the morale that, like, also the impact that it has on the teams working on customer care and how to handle that. Subpar customer self-service experience, so not knowing how to optimize the experience in terms of self-serve resources, so your FAQs or the data and information that you have on your website, and not knowing or struggling to outsource partners and optimize the cost for current operations. So everything that has to do with new outsourcing partners. And I'm going to tackle a couple of those with giving you a bit of a truly international flavor of what are the considerations that you have to keep in mind and how you should look at this. So I've added here, it's the same format and very international markets, EMEA, but also US and APAC, just to see the difference in terms of the purchasing and the full funnel and how consumers require different needs. So here we have the before purchase, during purchase, after purchase, and how different countries have different behaviors and different needs in the pre-sales and during and after sales. So as you can see, for instance, in Asia, pre-sale is extremely important, whereas more in Europe, the after purchase part is. So if you're planning to expand to APAC, you have to be aware of that so that you invest equally in pre-sale as after sale. In terms of during the pre-purchase phase, what are the type of information that people are looking for? So I've chosen here 2 examples, Germany and Italy. I highlighted them there. It's really important to have information on the product or the service. But as you can see, information on delivery option comes second. So understanding that people need to, when they look for the product, they need to have clearly stated what are the delivery options and have it at ease. Then, and again, you'll have all this information. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. During purchase, as you see here, there's like a lot of colors on for each market. There's different considerations. So information on the product and service, the current availability. So you want to make sure that if you have an offer, that it's actually available, so that people don't go through the whole funnel and then find out at checkout again that the product is no longer available. What are the promotions, claims, and rewards, and account related, so like creating a loyalty flow, which is really important, for instance, in Japan. Thirdly, on the post-purchase, we have return and refund top of mind. So when people buy, especially now that we're all going more and more towards an online experience, we want to make sure that the return and refund is as smooth as the purchasing one. So ensuring that if there's problems with the product receives, the product is delayed or incorrectly delivered, if there's questions about the usage, if they want to change it, anything that is around return and refund, that you either have all the information clearly marked on your website, or that you have a process in place and your customer experience solution can tackle that. And globally, self-service is on the rise. So more and more for all of these purchasing phases, we see a rise on having more information available on the website, so that you have less queries on your customer service. So I've highlighted here, for instance, Italy and Brazil, where information on, so self-service information on your website is super important throughout all three phases. And the dissatisfaction driver, of course, is if you have too little information, disorganized, no search capability, so people cannot search, the information is outdated, or you really have too much information and people are a bit lost and cannot find that easily. So the key takeaways here is that contact levels are great after purchase and will all often involve product issues, returns, and refund requests. Product information is the primary reason for contact before and during purchase. Refunds and returns are important factors for post-purchase communication, and offering a clear and straightforward refund policy can be beneficial in terms of building that brand loyalty. So keep that in mind in terms of before, during, and after, and have a clear strategy around it. I'm not going to, just in the interest of time, I'm going to really skip those two because it just gives you a bit more flavor in terms of self-service. You'll have those slides and you can go through that. I'm just going to go straight into the online part of self-service. So here, the three main takeaways are that a large proportion of consumers are already accessing online self-service portals. So here, it's really important that they're able to find all the information that they need. Making online self-service detailed, easy, and to navigate, so like having enough to respond to specific personalized needs, and the desire for personalized information and human interaction. So here it's a point of having various channels is fine, but really ensuring that at some point you do have some human interaction for those high importance type of requests. So like if your most loyal customers purchase or anything along those. And very quickly, I know that logistics is not something that will, depending on the industries, and we haven't had the chance to discuss in which industries and which businesses you do. So logistics might not be relevant for everyone, but definitely if you're in retail is a key one. And here, logistics also plays a key role in the customer journey because delivery options were like sometimes like it's the price. So 56% of the consumers abandoned online because the delivery options were too expensive. 61% want to have a bigger variety of delivery choices, and obviously having a negative delivery experience. So that can also impact your brand perception. So those are the three factors, the cost, the choices, and the experience. And the key 5 stages of the consumer journey that we have and where we believe logistics is super important. So we have awareness, consideration, purchase, retention, and advocacy. So like part where you're building your loyalty, and logistics is key throughout this entire funnel. Again, a couple of stats on all of these. So on the consideration, 70% of global customers, so it's not just one specific market, state clear information about delivery charges before purchase is the most important delivery element. So having a clear, this is the cost for your delivery beforehand. In terms of purchase, 51% of customers state the cost of the delivery is a key element. So understanding how much it costs and have that also clearly marked so that they don't find it out just at the checkout. So if you can either add the calculation or some information clearly on your website about the cost. In terms of the purchase itself, 54% of e-commerce customers want to be able to select a delivery location when they order from online retailers. So having also a clear information on like what are your delivery locations. So if you deliver, it's better to have it upfront. These are the locations where we deliver to, rather than again them finding out, oh, they don't deliver to my own location, and drop at checkout. And in terms of retention and loyalty, 49% of consumers are looking for full visibility of their shipment throughout the entire process. So tracking, where's my shipment at? Again, having easy to find information of like, my shipment is delayed on your FAQs or anywhere on your website, and ensuring that you have a process as well of when can people reach to a customer service representative in their market. And for creating a fulfillment strategy, we've added the 4 steps that we and the questions that you should ask yourself. So first, what is your long-term strategy? Scale regional presence or like a single focus on the market? What are the service levels, so costs, what's the most important for you? Investment, so what type of investment are you prepared for? And what kind of transport will you use? So it's going to be mixed or just one type of transport only. And here, like I've added a couple of examples of how we think and how some of our customers are thinking about logistics. So there's a couple of logistics hubs in Europe. So thinking about if you're considering of having operations across EMEA, how to set up a hub. So there's a couple of hubs in Germany, in France, Netherlands, and Poland, and then scoping that so that you have a clear, where do I deliver from my Germany hub, where do I deliver from my France one, and so on. Or maybe you will have just one and you'll have to understand how to, so for instance, for France, it enables fast delivery to Spain, Portugal, UK, and Italy. For the other ones, Germany, you have a great exposure to Central Europe, and Poland to the entire Eastern Europe, and also cost-wise might be more efficient. So keep that in mind as well. And then on the returns part, so like if you have a lot of here, especially now that we have more and more of an online presence, and people want to order and think about the ability of being able to return very easily, have a process as mind as well. So think about keeping returns as close to their destination markets as possible, and keep a full cycle of what do you do with the returns: donate, recycle, redistribute, refurbish, repair. So what's have the full cycle, not just about the process of returning from a customer. And with that, I try to finish it on time. Sorry if I went a bit faster on specific topics. The idea of today was not really to do an information overload, but walk you through some frameworks. I've pointed out to Market Finder. You'll have a lot of resources that is constantly updated. So I highly, highly encourage you to have a look if you haven't. And that's all from my side. I'm looking forward to the Q&A part after Carla's presentation. And thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Julia, for this e-commerce operations masterclass. You covered such important topics such as localization, payments, reputation indicators, customer experience. Thank you for walking us through these topics. I believe our audience is eager to start popping questions. They can start doing so in our private chat, and we will address them to you at the end of the presentation of Carla. Well, let's now exactly head to the next presentation. Carla Coutinho will be focusing in website best practices for retail sector, with some recommendations about how to turn your website into a sales machine, which is the bottom line of learning how to become global. This is exactly the bottom line of what we are here, is how to save money, which is what Julia just helped us with her presentation, and now Carla will help us to make your website user-friendly and make it very easy for customers to turn visits into transactions. Carla, be my guest. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Can you just confirm? Can you all hear me well?
Loud and clear. You
Perfect.
may go ahead.
So hi everyone. Olá a todos e bom dia. My name is Carla Coutinho Pereira. I'm the mobile lead at Google Portugal, and I'm going to be your host for the next 40 minutes. A little bit about myself and my career at Google. I actually started Google a little bit over 4 years, and as while we were waiting in the beginning of the morning, we're talking about the fact that Julia actually lived in so many different countries. Myself, I'm also an export, let's call it like this. So I started initially in the Dublin office in Ireland, and then I moved to the United States with Google. In our global headquarters in Mountain View, California. So this year I actually took the challenge to come back to our beautiful country, Portugal and Lisbon, while I'm managing the mobile projects for our advertisers. So what we're going to cover today. Julia talked about the importance of not only translating the websites, but also like really thinking about localizations of campaigns and websites, making sure you have the right payment methods, and making sure we're offering the user a really good experience. So how can we actually, and when we think about UX, there's two things that immediately come to mind that I believe it's important we talk about, and then we're going to address today. So the first one is, why should you care about UX? Why is this important for you to consider, especially when we're talking about going international? Because what might happen sometimes is our brands and our business is very well known in Portugal. We've built our customer base, but when we go to a new country, we always need to keep in mind this is a brand new experience for the user, and oftentimes they're very, very demanding versus a market like Portugal, let's call it like this. So we're going to touch base a little bit on why is this important for you and your brand, and then we're going to go over the best practices, so real life examples on how can we make sure you're giving your customers and your future customers the best user experience as possible. So this is what we're going to really talk about today, the why and the how. I might talk a little bit fast because I know we might be a little bit over time, but I just want to say that Carlos and the team, they will send you, all of you, like the full guide with all the screenshots and examples, and my email is also in the presentation. So if there's any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out. So starting with the why. Why should we care about UX, and why should we really think about giving our users the best experience possible? A study conducted in UK in 2018 shows that around 65% of the users would switch brands if their purchasing experience is poor. So this means that if we don't keep our brands obsessed with the customer, we're actually losing more than half of our potential customers just by not really giving them that easy and fast website and experience. And even for the business standpoint, so brands that focus on what we call the user experience and the UX, we can see up to 200% improvement in conversion rates. So we're talking more than doubling your business by only focusing on making sure that the first second that the client goes into your website, they are delighted, everything is clean, everything is organized, and they know exactly what to do. And sometimes we think about, and I have this question a lot of times when I talk to my customers around UX and why they should be focusing on this, they think it's these Herculean tasks where you need to redesign your entire website or the entire section of your specific website that will take a lot of time and a lot of effort. Sometimes it's just as easy as changing a button, changing the color of the button, changing the format of the button, and even changing the text that we have in that button. Small changes can really make a difference. So this is what we're going to talk today. This is really what we want to address the next 40 minutes. And before we deep dive on those recommendations and the top UX principles for retail, I wanted to highlight the importance of what we call A/B testing. So all recommendations and best practices we will share, we always recommend for you to test it first before you actually deploy it on your website. This way, you can answer the following question: what was the business impact of this change? And I think we as marketeers, as CEOs and brand owners, really knowing, okay, I changed this and I got X% more revenue from this website, this will start giving you cues on how can you actually grow your business without really having to put a lot more money into it or just making the design experience better. So with that, 3 main suggestions for A/B testing. One, it's important that we always start with a goal. What is that we want to achieve with this test? Do we want better website engagement? Do we want to increase our conversion rate, so the number of purchases in our website? Do we want to decrease the drop-off that we get in a specific part of the checkout? It doesn't really matter what you're trying to achieve. Just make sure that whenever you change something or whatever you test something, you always start with what's the goal and what are we trying to achieve. After you know what's the goal, the second thing that is important whenever we talk about A/B testing or any type of testing is what are you going to change to reach that goal? And in here, the recommendation is to only change one thing at a time. And this is mainly to give you a better perception on what actually drove impact. Because sometimes when we change 2 or 3 things at the same time, and we know that the conversion rates increase, or let's imagine that the opposite happened, right? We change something on our website, and then the conversion rate drops. If we change more than one thing at the same time, we will not know if it was thing 1 or thing 2. So think about a schedule calendar of what are the changes that you want to do in your website and really take one at a time. Number 3, and this is a recommendation that I think all mobile specialists and UX and design teams will always tell you, site experience. Either we're talking about how fast is your website, or actually how does your design and your user experience look like. This is never a one and done. So this takes a lot of continuous work and a lot of improvements that we always need to keep in mind and should really be part of our company's culture. And not only should be continuous work, so you test one thing today and then tomorrow you're going to test something else, but we definitely recommend for you to do it mobile first. As we know, today the majority of searches, so if you're going to Google, the majority of searches that users are making all across the world are already happening on mobile. So whenever you're thinking about changing a design element of your website or actually creating a new website, always think about this through a mobile first lens, because it's where your users are. So making sure you give them this smooth purchase process on your mobile, it's the most important thing you can do to make sure they're really happy and they actually purchase. So now that we understand the why, and how can you actually test and start like taking some of these recommendations home, what are the best practices and things that we recommend to look at? After looking at 100 retail websites at Google, we realized there were certain universal UX user experience elements that really help to create on what we call a frictionless shopping experience. So this list aims to expand on those principles and arm you with a checklist on how can you improve your mobile website across 6 key site areas. We're going to talk about home and landing page, the menus, the category and product page, the conversion, so the checkout funnel, and the form. So how many best practices are we talking about? A lot. And we can see here, this looks like a supermarket list where we have a ton of things under each individual section. So for the sake of time and to really help you focus on where can you start, we've curated this list into top 3 suggestions for each category. So for today, we're going to review the home page, the search and category page. So how does your product and how can you present your retail website and your product to your customers? And then we're also going to talk about the conversion and the checkout funnel. In the follow-up email, as I mentioned in the beginning, all of these suggestions will be considered on the email, where we're going to have some screenshots and some visual examples on how can you address these issues. And in bold, as you can see here, we highlighted some of these first recommendations and things that you can start by looking at. So now you tell me, Carla, this list is amazing. I have a lot of homework to do, but how do we exactly choose these top 3 best practices for each section of the website? And we basically grouped based on two things: impact, ease of implementation, and business impact. So for each section that we're actually going to talk about, you're going to see the full list of recommendations we have here, but with 2 things: how easy it is for you to implement on your website. So you already know, like, okay, if I do recommendation 1, this is how difficult it will be, and this is the predicted impact it will have on my website, versus if I do recommendation number 4, which might be easier, but the impact might be lower. So it really helps you to prioritize and already gives you a good checklist on where should you start. So starting with and for each key 6 retail sections, we will highlight and share examples of the recommended must-haves, as I was mentioning. And at the end of this section, so by each category, we're also going to see one example of a retail that does a lot of the best practices. So not only you have specific examples for each individual one, but you can see one advertiser that really puts everything together. How would that going to look like? So starting with the home and landing page, we'll touch base into top 3 that are easy to implement, as we can see here, but they also have the high impact. So the CTAs and the benefit proposition. Starting with the CTAs, or the call to actions. And this is probably one of the most important features in your website that you should keep mind of. So we recommend not only to have clear and descriptive CTAs, but also make sure you always show them above the fold. And above the fold is basically the first thing that the client will see. So whenever they tap your website or whenever they go into your website for the first time, it's important we keep in mind what is that we want to tell them, like how do we want to present our brand. And we talked about clear and descriptive. And why do we talk about these 2 things? We should never expect that our users should know what do we want them to do after they land in our website. So we, the brands, we should be really, really clear on the action we want them to take. And in here, I want to highlight 2 really good examples that we can see, one from Amazon and one from the Tuft & Needle. So from the Amazon, I know that the CTA is to sign in. So before I even clicked on this button, I already know that I should be expected to be redirected to my sign-in page. On Tuft & Needle, they are a mattress company, and we can see here their call to action. It's very easy, it's very simple and very descriptive. And it's actually asking me to, okay, you landed in our website. This is our homepage. If you click here, you should expect to see a product page because they're asking you to view the mattresses. So it's really clear on what's the action we want the user to do. And it's also already sets the expectation from the beginning. If you click here, this is where you should expect to go. On top of the call to action, other thing that is really, really important to make sure you have on your landing page, it's what we call a clear benefit value proposition. That is also above the fold. So if you think about your homepage, the two things we definitely recommend for you to keep it above the fold is the call to action and the value proposition. So the value proposition helps you answer the question on why should a customer purchase with you? What is that you have to offer that no one has? And this can be because, for example, you're running a sale and you also have free delivery, or because you have 2-day shippings, or you also have free returns. It's important that you keep that into the main part of the website. You highlight that, as we can see here, the examples from Target, from Sephora, and West Elm. So this in combination with the CTA and the call to action and the action we want them to take, those are the two main things that you can think about on what's the most important thing on the landing page or the home page. And to tie things together, one really good example of a brand that takes a lot of these best practices in consideration, aggregates everything, it's Boots, the UK pharmacy company. So why do we really like this example? It has a very clear value proposition. So it says, order today, collect tomorrow. So you know that your products will be available in less than 24 hours. It also has a very clear CTA. So they're running a promotion. They also say like, okay, if you buy one, you can get one free. So it's already pulling the customer in with a promotion. The menu and everything is very organized. They highlight their main categories. So we have mother and baby, electrical, and offers. So they already give the user like, hey, this is our best-selling products. Let me already put it in the homepage so the user know already what can they find and how can they find it quickly. So moving on to the navigation. So we skip the menu part. As I mentioned, you can see there's the menu and navigation piece. But in the follow-up, as I was saying, we'll share all the recommendations. And if there's any questions, you can always come to me. And search is a very important section of the website. And that's why we want to highlight it today, because when you get it right, it will definitely have an impact. And the reason why is that is because oftentimes the user doesn't really know what are all of your categories. They don't really know what are all the products that you sell. Or whenever they land in your website, they already have a very specific product in mind that they already want to purchase. So it's really making sure having the search bar, it does really help with the experience and making sure they already can find what they need in just one click away. So number one recommendation will be not only have a search feature in your website, especially if you're a retailer and if you have a lot of products. If you think about ourselves, and let's take an example for Vorten or Convenient, there's just so many sections into the website. Whenever I go to Vorten, I already know if I want to purchase a fridge or if I need a toaster. So really making sure I have the ability to go into the website and actually search for it instead of having to navigate all of their categories. This really makes the experience a lot more easy for me. So not only have that search feature in your website, but make sure it's in a prominent place. So we see here 3 really good examples from Amazon, Zalando, and List, where whenever you go into the website, and if you think about the Amazon example, we talked about having a very clear call to action. They have the sign in, but the search bar, it's also featured in a very highlighted place right next to the logo on top, and it occupies the full page, basically, the full length of the page, let's call it like this. So it's really making sure that not only you have a search feature, but the user can actually see it and know where can they find it. We usually recommend to put this on the top, so close to the logo, like the 3 examples that we have here from Amazon, Zalando, and List. Now that we know and we really understand why me as a retailer, why should I have a search bar? How can we actually make it easier for the user to engage with it? So first suggestion is to use auto suggestions. So basically, as the customer starts typing what they're looking for, we are already showing them suggestions of the products that we have that match to their search. This way, they don't need to be like, if they're looking for a very specific product or something that has 2 or 3 words, they don't need to type the full thing, because the second they are already putting some of the words, we are already giving them back results of like, hey, are you actually looking for this, this, or this? So then they only need to click, and it's much immediate, and it's also like a very simple process. I would love to highlight the Farfetch example, where for retail, this is a very clever way to do it. If I start typing TED, not only it shows me 2 things. It shows me what are the designers that have those keywords. So not only will give me the products, but it will give me, for example, the designers and the actual product categories. So I could be searching for a specific product, and then that's addressed with the categories. But if I'm also searching for a specific designer, because of the nature of the website, the platform shows me both options, so I can find whatever I'm looking for in a very easy way. And not only have search bar, have it in a prominent place of your website, make sure you're always suggesting and giving back results. It's always important to always show results to your client, even when you don't sell that product or if the product is out of stock. So it's a great way to say to your customer, okay, I know you search for flux camisetas, we can see in this example. We don't really sell that, but these are some, here you can find some related products that we sell, or we don't have that, as the Ray example. We don't really sell that product, but by the way, do know that we're running a sale, so don't leave just yet and start looking at what we have here for you at a discount price. One really good example is Patagonia, where they actually show their top products. So whenever the user search for something and if you don't have it, don't be afraid to say, okay, we don't have it, but also don't leave the user empty-handed. Try to offer them or to show them either your top products that you sell or products that might be similar to the ones that they searched, or even a promotion that you might be running. So these are 3 different ways that you can actually still engage and keep the user in your website, even though you're telling them in a very clear way, like, hey, we actually don't have what you're looking for. One really good example of the search feature is Sephora, and they do these things really well. Why? So it highlights the search bar. Not only we have the icon on top, but we also have the search bar right below the logo. It also uses, you cannot see in this example, but basically whenever you're typing for something at Sephora, they will also already gonna give you the example of like a full list of products that you have. For example, if I start tapping by lip, because I might be looking for a lip gloss or a lip liner, they already start showing me those products and those lists of products, so it's easier for me to actually find what I'm looking for. They also address typos. So for example, I search for lip gloss and instead of I put a Y. So they still take that into consideration, like, hey, Carla, did you actually meant lip? And if so, these are the products we have here for you. So there's a lot of ways that you can actually make your user experience easy without really overcomplicating or over-engineering. Okay, so now moving on to the category product. And this is where we're going to look at how can we present the products and the categories and the different type of products we sell in an appealing way for the user. The number 1 recommendation is, we talked about in the beginning, of having a clear value proposition in the homepage. Don't be afraid to show that throughout the entire website. So the value proposition we talked about in the beginning, it's important because it still keeps reminding the user on why they should purchase with you. And this really, this example from Gap, I think it illustrates really well. If I'm in the category page, they say there's free shipping on orders above $50. After I selected the products, let's imagine I'm watching and I'm checking this t-shirt from Gap, they still kept the free shipping because it's important to make sure you're always reminding your users what's the benefit you have either free shipping, fast shipping, free returns. If you have some of these features in your business, make sure you always highlight them, and even highlight them in the checkout process. So in here, we have it on the product page, we have it on the category page, and we also have it after the user adds the products to the basket. They're still showing what's the benefit and what can the user expect in terms of shipping. Will they actually have to pay for it, or will they have it for free? The second point, and this is important for retail as well, especially if you sell a lot of products, it's offering to enable the users to easily sort and filter for your products. And I think we can always relate to this. I think we've always been in this situation where we need to find, we're looking for jeans, but we're looking for a specific type of jeans. Like, we don't want a boot cut, we want skinny jeans, and we don't want blue jeans, we want black. So allowing the user to sort and filter, it's going to be really the best thing that you can do, especially when you have a lot of products to show. So not only have search to really help the user to find what they need, but after they're in the category page, allow them to filter with as much features as possible, or at least as much features as you can have, so they can find exactly what they're looking for with just 2 or 3 clicks. This is also a really good way to organize when you have a lot of products, because sometimes the users get a little bit of a paralysis when they see just so much option. I don't even know where to start. Having those filters really helped. And last but not least, on the product page, it's the price. We all know we're very sensitive to price, so this is really important to make sure that whenever you're showcasing a product in your website, you show them the title, you show them images, but you also show the price above the fold. And this is more about setting the expectation and really telling the user all the information they need up front without having them to go to scroll down into the website or to add products to the checkout. They should really know what are the sizes that I have, what's the product, how does the product look like, and how much this is going to cost me. One really good example is the Target one. So the middle example we have here, where they're selling leggings, and they have a lot of these things that are really well done, because not only they're showing the product and they're showing an image of the product and the description, but because this product has a lot of different colors, so we're talking about 4 different colors that the users can opt in into or can choose from, they also keeping the color selection above the folds and the size selection as well above the folds. So it makes them really easy to really do the entire purchase, color, size, and knowing the price already in the first page without having to interact a lot with the website by scrolling down or having to navigate to other pages. So again, and I know this is the second time I gave the Sephora example, Sephora does this really well, and we can see it with these 2 screenshots. The value proposition is in the category and the page. So that black highlighted thing that's saying get free 2-day shipping with no minimal order all year. So this is the thing that they have it on the home page, on the products category page, on the product page. And even after I added this product to my bag, it's still there. They're also showing an option to sort and filter, as we can see right next to the search feature. You can sort and filter. So even when I'm in the makeup selection, I can filter by specific makeup, by specific products, or even by the colors. And they also, on the product page, so the second example we see here, not only they're showing the product above the folds, they're showing the product description, the brand, and the photography on how does the lip line, the lip gloss looks like, but they're also showing, hey, we have this into 7 or 8 different colors. This is the colors that we have available for you for this price. So last but not the least, the conversion. So after we know how can we engage the user from the landing page by showing them why should they buy with us and what action do we want them to take, to the product and the category page on how should we present the product and how important it is to keep the value proposition across the entire website. How can we make sure that after the user adds those products to the checkouts, that we really have them engage with us and finish that process. So we're going to review the top 3 things, 3 to 4 recommendations that we have to make sure that you're really giving the users a really good checkout experience. So starting with the medium ease of implementation to the highest impact is redirecting the users. There's nothing more annoying than after you're in a retail website, you added a product to a cart, and then all of a sudden you actually get redirected to the cart when you're still not done with your shopping. So really think about how can you make this easy for the customer and how can you actually have them to continue shopping on your website. And one really good way is to keep in mind that we don't really recommend for you to redirect the user after they add to the cart. There's ways that you can actually show a pop-up or a modal in this case where you say, hey, we just confirmed that this product was added to the basket. You have two options. Either you can view the bag and start your checkout process if this is the only thing you wanted to purchase, or you can continue shopping with us. So without the need of having to go to the checkout and then coming back to the home page or coming back to the search feature. So this really guarantees that you allow the users an experience of purchasing multiple products without having to have a lot of back and forth. One example I would love to highlight is the middle one from Revolve, an apparel brand. So not only they confirm, okay, Carla, you love this dress, the dress you added to the checkout, we can confirm it's already on your cart. You have two options. Either you can view bag or checkout, or you can continue shopping. So without having to actually do a lot of things and a lot of steps, I can continue my purchase shopping and add more than just one product to it. Facilitate cross-device movement. So this is, even though all of these suggestions are aimed to improve specifically mobile and the user experience on mobile, it's important that you give your customers the option to either save or email the basket. Oftentimes they are not ready to pull the trigger right away, or they're just on their way to work while they're adding products to the cart. So make sure you really give them the offer to either email the bag or actually save it for later. So the next time they go into your website, either on mobile or on a different device, they can easily repull the shopping bag without having to create everything from scratch. So there's really clever ways you can do this without really throwing it in your face, let's call it like this. So we have the example from Zoomies, where we have either we start checkout, as we can see here, or I can email my bag. So I just put my email and everything will be saved. Or even Ray example, where it gives the modal option of continue shopping or start the checkout. And even after you added the product, you can say, okay, I want to add more products, I want to save this for later, or I want to remove this product. So it's all about making sure the users have that option too. Last but not the least, the checkout. So this is probably, and when I talk about retails, this is one of their biggest pain points. And this is usually when we see the most drop off in terms of users. So whenever we talked about, okay, I have a lot of people adding products to the cart, but for some reason, in the first step of the checkout, which is identification, I have a lot of people dropping off and a lot of users that don't continue the process. And this is mainly to two things. One is when we don't give them an option, when we don't facilitate the checkout by giving them an option to do what we call a social login, or when we don't offer a guest checkout. And we can see here that 92% of users give up if they don't remember username and password. And I think it's pretty safe to say that we all need to remember a lot of username and a lot of passwords for literally everything. So make sure you give the users the social login option, because an email or even the Facebook account, we're all going to remember that because it's something that we use on an everyday basis. So make sure you give them those options, and the social login is a great way to do it. Also, not only think about how can you make it easier for someone who wants to create an account, but even if I'm not really interested in logging in with my email and my password or my social accounts, how can I make sure that I still can go through the purchase process? And this answers with the guest checkout. So 35% of users will completely abandon the checkout if brands don't give them the checkout and the guest checkout option. So this means that if you have 100 sales or 100 baskets, 35 of those baskets will not move forward if you're not giving this option to the customer. So there's clever ways that you can offer the option, which is something we definitely recommend. But you can also say, for example, okay, We understand you want to check in as a guest, you have that option, but you can also show them the benefits that the user can have by creating an account. That can be easy tracking of the purchases, it can be access to exclusive discounts. So make sure you give the option, but then you can also add a few bullet points on what's the benefit of the user of creating an account. So this way you're ensuring that the user does whatever they want to do on the checkout. If they want to do guest checkout, they do it. If they want to do the login, they do it. But at the same time, whenever they select that option, they will understand, okay, what's the value of actually creating an account? And limiting the points of the exit. And why is this important? Whenever we get into the checkout, we're asking the user for, this is probably where we're asking the most of work, in the sense that they need to put their billing address, they need to put their delivery address, they need to put their credit card information, their phone, their email. So really making sure that we keep this as clean, as easy as possible. We don't really offer them what we call exit points. So for example, we have here, the only exit point we have on these 3 examples is the logos that will help redirect the user to the homepage. So they only really have 2 options. Either they continue the checkout, or if they want to leave or add something else, they can click here and go to the homepage. Another great example is and suggestion is to actually have what we call a progress bar. As we can see here, delivery details and payments. This is really important because it's setting the expectations since the beginning of what do we want the user to do, what information we'll need for them, and how far are them to complete the purchase. So it really helps to set these expectations from the beginning. As an example, Petco has a lot of these best practices in place. They have the value proposition with the 15% on. As we can see here, it's on the product page, and it's also after I added the product to the cart. They offer the checkout as a guest, and at the same time, they're giving you here what are the benefits for you to create an account. So you have the option, but at the same time, they're saying, hey, if you create an account, this is what we can offer to you. And after I started my checkout process, I can really only move forward, and I know I have 4 steps until my purchase is done. Or the only way that I can exit the website or have an exit point, it's through their logo if I click on the Petco homepage. So with that, we finish all of the top recommendations on UX. I just want you to leave this session with 3 main things when we think about UX and user experience. So when testing and thinking about new website features, make sure you always do it mobile first. As I was mentioning, it's very easy to design a site that is made for a big screen, like a desktop. But when we know that our users go to our website through a mobile device, we really need to think, how can we make that experience as good as a desktop one? When creating new experiments, so whenever you want to test some of these recommendations, make sure not only you follow these best practices, but also put yourself in your customer's shoes. Like, if I'm a customer, what is that I would want to see versus I'm a brand and I want to show this? And one really good and cheap way to do it is actually ask your friends and your family, show them the website or show them the mock-up designs that you have, and ask them to perform an action in your website. Just say, hey, this is my website. Can you please purchase me the products X, Y, or Z? Or can you please do the checkout process on my website? So it's sometimes as easy as asking other people, like people that are not so familiar with our brand, to perform specific actions and to give you feedback on like, okay, what do you thought of this? Where did you struggle the most? So they're already going to give you some inspiration on what are the things that you can start by addressing. The third one is always keep testing. So make sure you're optimizing your website, but also it's never a one and done, as I mentioned in the beginning. Improving your mobile website and improving your website, it's always a continuous work. And if you think about it, if we have a retail store, we're not only going to put the products like away, and we're not only going to do like cleaning the store once a month. We actually do it every day. So we know the second that the user goes, the experience on your physical store, it's the best that we can have. So we should always think about mobile as like your online store that also needs some revision and needs continuous work. This is all from me. I hope this was an interesting session for all of you, and I think now we can take some questions.
Thank you, Carla, for your insightful presentation. If I could summarize your presentation in a nutshell, I would say please invest your money in doing your website simple, effective. Don't waste too much money in beautificating your website. Well, we have now reached the Q&A time of this session. We are looking forward to have your questions. Please address them in English and kindly identify to whom you are addressing these questions. We have already one that comes from Pedro Moraes from Consulting Service. I believe this is more of a question for the business development team in Google. However, I will address them to our guests. Pedro would like to know if Google does have a consulting service for a startup with a new brand. This consulting service would consist in helping with strategy, website, logistics, etc. Don't know if you're ready to reply to answer to this question. If not, we can give the right contacts to Pedro, and then he will move on with his query. Carla or Julia, are any of you ready to reply to this question that comes from Pedro Moraes? Are you hearing me? Julia, your sound, and Carla, your sound.
You got disconnected, Carlos.
I was addressing you a question from Pedro Moraes from Consulting Service. I believe this is a question for Google business development team. However, I will address this question to you. The question is, does Google have a consulting service for a startup with a new brand? This consulting service would consist in helping with strategy, website, logistics, etc. Are you ready to address this one?
Yes, I can go. I don't know, Carla, if she wants to add. There's various initiatives that Google runs every year and every quarter on startups. So there's various programs. We ran one program last quarter on some retail startups. I know that there's initiatives at EMEA and then at the country level. What I would recommend is that you have a look at Think with Google. Like that's the one-stop shop that you can see all the latest news and all the initiatives that we're running. So if you go at Think with Google, you can see exactly that. And then on top of that, the program and the tool that we rolled out that is specifically for startups and small businesses, that it's hosted on Think with Google, that is Market Finder, particularly addresses all these operational and marketing challenges. So it's a self-service tool that all startups and all businesses can access. So I would start with those 2 points, Think with Google and then Market Finder and thank you so much, Carla, for adding the links. I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Carla, during your presentation, you stated out clearly that it's very important to display clearly the value proposition of each brand, either the benefit or the discount. What I would like to ask you is, what is more important? What makes more conversions? It's the benefit or it's the discount that the brand is offering at the moment?
Yeah, so I think this is a great question, and I would say it really depends on the market we're looking for. We know that usually, for example, in Portugal, users are very price sensitive. So if you have a big discount or if you have a big sale going on, make sure you highlight it. In countries like, for example, in Germany, they probably will say that convenience and like free shipping and fast shipping, it will be more important than just the price. So it's a matter of like understanding what's the market, what really triggers the user, and then you can actually A/B test different call to actions and see how does the user react to those.
There's an issue whenever a customer is visiting a website that maybe they can go through all the website, they can put a lot of stuff in their basket, but at the end, nothing happens. They leave the purchase unfinished. Is there a good strategy to convert these visitors into real purchases? Some brands, for example, send emails reminding that you just left some unfinished business in your basket. Others send a voucher with a discount in order to press that sale. Is there a good strategy to convert these people into buyers?
Another really good question. I would say we can look at this in two different angles. One is first start by asking, what is the experience on the website? Like, is there anything I can fix in order to try to increase the users that added to the basket to actually starting the purchase funnel? And this can be some of the recommendations we just look over, like having the guest checkout, having the social login, and really try to understand for each step of your funnel, what's the specific step that the users are dropping, and try to ask yourself, why is that? So after you know that, you already can say, okay, is there anything that I need to improve on my website? And then the second point, and I think, Carlos, you already answered to it, is like, what are the marketing strategies that we can do in order to say to the users, hey, these products are still in your basket? I think email marketing is a really good way to do that. And I think almost all of the retailers have that in mind, like, hey, you added these products, know that you can still purchase them. If you're actually running a sale for some of the products that the users might have added to the basket, make sure you also highlighted that. Or, hey, Carla, it's been 2 days since you visited us, and we noticed that you have some products in your basket. Why don't you come and shop with us? Not only outside of email marketing, there's paid campaigns that you can run where you can actually retarget the users. So you can actually take the users who added products to your basket and do localized and like retarget campaigns on Google or Facebook, even though I shouldn't be saying Facebook. But there's ways that you can also take these users and having them to purchase directly without doing like email marketing or any of the other initiatives.
Under a customer perspective, and now directing the question to Julia, has Julia introduced this issue. Under a customer perspective, the websites are seem to becoming, or the customer service in websites are becoming more digital and digital and digital. I mean, it's becoming very difficult to find a phone in the website with the number in order for you to call someone, interact, drop your frustration, or ask for something. You always have to send an email, even do a web chat. Is there a lack of human touch in e-commerce right now?
Yes and no, in the sense that I think some companies, I think the simplification is the problem. So as long as you have it very clearly and you have a path of saying, okay, step 1, you can look in our FAQs. Step 2, chat here so that we can clearly direct you to the right information. And then a step 3, if then at that point you don't find any information, have clearly a customer service. So I think where some companies fail is that they think that one replaces other, and they either go with fully customer service resourced by humans, or just like a digital online chat or FAQ only. And I think the solution is to have a mix of all, but being smart of how you use your customer service representatives.
When you walk us through some topics such as payments and localization, very important topics, because we just understood that we can lose a lot of money if we don't do that right. But the fact is that when we are looking at the Portuguese spectrum of companies, we see a lot of small companies, and they have to be very cost efficient when addressing these issues. How should we address this? Or putting in other terms, what are the payment means with larger market shares, or which is the most common languages that a company could use? Instead of using them all, that would be the best, because if you're addressing a market and you don't speak that language, nobody will understand you. So it's perfectly clear. Also, if you don't provide a mean of payment that everybody uses, well, you won't have much sales in that market. But the fact is, when looking into the management of a small company, they would say, well, we have to be as efficient as possible. What would be our best strategy, since we can't have it all in our website?
Yeah, and it's a very, very fair point. So I think there should be a base across all markets of the common ones. So bank transfer, credit card, and then online payments such as PayPal or like a Google Pay, Apple Pay, just like you also service for the mobile and app infrastructure. And then I think what's important is that when you have that across the board for all markets, And then when you enter new markets, that you identify what is that one key aspect. So for instance, in Netherlands, if you don't have Ideal, it's very, very hard to penetrate that market. So it's really understanding, am I okay? Is there one payment method for a specific market that I need to add that will solve that, rather than adding 20 new ones and think. So there's always going to be one key one for each market, at least. So I've added so forth for Germany, which is super important, and Ideal in Netherlands. And there's some very, very specific ones in Brazil, or like even in Asia, they're like more nuanced. So I would say a base, as I said, a base of like the key ones: credit card, bank transfer, 1 or 2 online payments. And then depending market by market, adding 1 or 2 local flavors. So those, and I know it's challenging, especially if you're adding a lot of markets. And that's why it's important that you partner, so like clients partner with service providers that can also accompany them. So there's different payment providers that can also give that umbrella view of different payment methods in each market, so that you don't have to manage one by one in each. So yeah, that's the one best practice that I see with larger and smaller clients as well.
I would now like to address another topic that you covered in your presentation, that is about the reputation indicators, or seal of approval, as I remember you mentioned them. Which are the most important seal of approvals that we should have in our website, and how can we be sure if they are for real? I mean, if they were not stolen, if I can use the word and just stick it to my website.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I always give an example of saying, think of a brand. So if you think of Germany, think of like the one brand that people associate Germany with, and have a look on their website. Start with that and think about what are the key certifications that they have. I wouldn't just go and Google certifications for Germany, but think about the brand that you're aspiring. So if you enter Germany, how you want people to think of you as that very reliable German brand, take inspiration from that. Same for France. Like, what is the one emblematic brand that you know and you want people, even if it's not your direct competitor, just in terms of brand perception, and have a look there. So start with that. And then on Market Finder, again, I'm referencing quite a lot Market Finder, how you can also find a lot of useful information by market on those specific points.
I would now like to address another topic that you covered, that is the return and refunds as a part of the customer experience. In the last 3 years, I lived in Australia, which is a market that has e-commerce very well developed. And whenever you receive a package, it looks like the retailer is already expecting you to return it, because you already have the box or the package, you already have the forms, everything ready for you to return the product if you're not happy with the sizes, if you're not happy with whatever the reason is. How important would you classify this easy return thing for a company in order to convert as much as possible visits into sales?
It's crucial. I absolutely think it's crucial, especially now where we have less of an offline experience and people prefer to shop online, and even a lot of retailers are pivoting more to an online experience where they have more relaxed and more choices in terms of refund and returns, because that will mean that it's, if you, especially if you're purchasing something online for the first time, you're not sure about the sizes, or you haven't used that brand before, you want to have that ease of mind that if you're not satisfied, that you can return it. So especially, I think, when you're entering a new market and your brand is not known and you're trying to build that brand reputation and awareness, delivery refunds are key, are crucial, go hand in hand.
Well, just a few minutes ago, I established the floor that in Portugal we have such a big pool of small companies, and the audience was really following us. Gil Ferraz comes up with this question. All examples given are related to big companies. Could you give examples of good practices in small, he doesn't say medium, but in small companies, small, medium companies? Could you enlighten us with, well, one good example that comes from a small company or SME?
Yeah, I think all of these key findings are super useful for any company. So we use these frameworks, whether it's like one of the largest advertisers we have, or the smaller ones. And the approach we have is a lot of these findings and learnings are not available to small and businesses or startups. So we're opening up all the findings and knowledge and learnings from failures and successes that we have had as a company, as Google, and also seeing from our customers, so that you have an understanding and you have a North Star of what you're aspiring. Because I think that the principles are there, it's just the scale that will be different. And again, Market Finder is really, really tailored for small, medium, but I would say small and startups. So all the frameworks, all the information we have there is really tailored for that audience. So highly encourage everyone to have a look at that.
Maybe it's instead of just looking at the e-commerce side, could we do something in terms of marketing here to help sales? For example, a small company that, for example, manufactures bath towels could, on top of that bath towel, send a smaller towel to their customers. Could this be as well a good idea to convert, like give a final push to customers who are willing to buy that type of product?
Yeah, like I think promotions are key, and ensuring that you also have a program for your most loyal customers. So incentivizing and building your loyalty and customer lifetime value is very, very important. So absolutely.
Okay. Now to finalize our webinar, since we are already 6 minutes over time, Carla, maybe coming up to something that you mentioned in the beginning of your presentation, which is the need for testing. How far should a company take this testing process in order to see if something is working or not, if their buttons, if their colors, if their website geography is working or not?
I would say as far as they can manage. What we usually see and we recommend, so some of the tools that you can actually use for A/B testing, they're completely free. Like, for example, Google Optimize, there's a free version that you can do A/B testing. It really depends on how much traffic do we have to go into the test and the websites until you actually give results that are statistically significant. I would say around 2 to 3 weeks, you can actually do one A/B test and really get the results to see, okay, is this something that it needs another iteration, or is this something that we can actually move forward and implement? And even sometimes, if you decide to do one UX test and the results are not good, think about, okay, why did it fail? Like, do we need to do another iteration of this test, or should we just move forward to the next one? So think about this, and this is really things that are across any size of company. You just need to make sure you have like a developer team or one person that develops and designs, and then you can do these tests in a very intuitive way into free platforms, so without having to spend money into making these tests. And like in a 2 to 3 weeks time, you can start seeing some of the results.
We are already overtimed. Julia Grizan and Carla Coutinho, thank you both for performing such interesting and useful presentations for us today. I believe they are valuable for our audience, and I hope to see these good practices explained here turned into more and better businesses for Portuguese companies. Obrigado a todos os que estiveram hoje connosco. Continua a acompanhar os webinars que a AICEP está a organizar para ajudar as empresas portuguesas durante os tempos de desafio que atravessamos. Na próxima segunda-feira concluímos esta sequência de webinars com a Google, com o tema Promover o e-commerce para chegar aos clientes de todo o mundo. E-commerce à parte, os nossos webinars colocam outros temas em agenda. Já na próxima terça-feira organizamos um webinar sobre materiais de construção no Reino Unido. Recomendo que mantenha o contacto com o seu gestor de cliente e acompanhe os nossos canais web para se manter atualizado, para manter a nossa agenda de webinars atualizada. Gostaria, por último, de recordar que a gravação desta sessão irá ser disponibilizada, assim como as apresentações que fizeram a Carla e a Yulia. Fiquem bem, espero vê-los brevemente num dos webinars da AICEP. Tenha um bom dia.